just to kind of run through this real quick, two products I'm going to focus on are going to be OxyPrep and OxyPar. OxyPrep is going to, at first, look just like a stain remover, but really what's going on is it's setting up the alkaline side of our reaction, okay? So that means it's got a higher pH. OxyPar is going to be the neutralization side of the reaction, which is why it says step 2. So this is going to be the neutralizer. It's got a low pH. When those two things come together, we're going to get a pH of around 7, right? Because what we also want to avoid is anything that could be like, that could create corrosion or any issues like that, or over drying of wood, things that a lot of products tend to do. I also have these quarter folds I was telling you about, these wipers. This is just going to allow me to collect soil load as I go along to kind of show you what's coming off the surface. All right, so I'll start with OxyPrep right here. And this is just a mold severity index test kit. This is just what I take on to any job or when I'm doing any little training demonstration like this. So well, I'm getting okay, here we go. All right, this is where it kind of changes. All right, so what I would have normally done if I was just doing severity indexing with a customer, as I said, I would take a picture of where we started, then after the stain remover was applied, OxyPrep, take a picture of that, then I would take a picture of this reaction right here. If you look at the surface and what's going on, you'll notice that it's like going from white to a very yellowy, kind of dirty color, okay? What I want, from a severity indexing standpoint, what's really useful in showing customers what's going on is to actually capture that, okay? Because that is going to be where all the soil load is trapped, right? That's the mold and everything else that's coming out of the surface. So when we talk about is React Extract just a spray and walk away type of thing? If we want to create a visibly clean, dust-free surface, then the answer would be no, and that's only because what we're talking about is, remediation is a process of cleaning, not killing, right? Sanitization only takes place after the cleaning stage takes place, right? We've got to have a clean substrate and a clean environment to consider a condition 1 environment, which is what we're all after, is that condition 1 environment, restoring it to a healthy condition, in other words, okay? So that kind of gives you an idea. What the beauty of this is because we can kind of ping pong with pHs, if there was any more soil load left in that surface, we can actually go behind this, right, create a secondary reaction on that surface, allow it to draw more soil load to the top if there's still residual soil load within that, and then within a minute or two we can go right back to that surface again. Imagine this being, by the way, a vacuum, right? And we can extract anything that might be residual to it, okay? Now, we do that in small demonstrations like this, but we can do that at scale as well, right? If we're trying to move quickly and do a 2,000 square foot crawl space in a day, or I'm sorry, in half a day, we wouldn't use this method. We would use like the BTM sprayer or something like that. So we can take 2 men, a half a day, 2,000 square foot crawl space, execute everything from MSI 1 through 5, and have successful results.
And is this still no HEPA vacuum?
Yeah, no HEPA vacuum, because right, all of the soil load is getting captured into that moisture, right? When you look at the foundations of mold remediation, it comes from asbestos, right? Asbestos, they use actually water as a method of containing and controlling contaminants on the surface. In that case, asbestos. Here, we're containing the mold spores themselves with moisture, so that as that's coming up from the surface, everything's suspended in that liquid foam, right? So nothing's getting airborne.
Any kind of situation that, is the situation going to change versus 10% wood moisture content versus 30%. So if we don't dehumidify, do we need to dehumidify first?
No.
After?
There's no reason to, right? There's absolutely no reason to. In fact, a little bit of moisture will just help draw in the chemical into the substrate. It's not gonna delay results or anything like that.
And does this work 24 to 48 hours and then turn back to a water molecule?
You're seeing that conversion's happening immediately right here, right? So as we're neutralizing the chemistry itself, it's converting into water every step of the way because we're just working with two oxidizers on opposing ends of the pH spectrum. Yep.
I'm sure it was pretty. It was some really quick results.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Now we can just get Gary on board and vacuum and everything.
You got your maid outfit on?
It's underneath, like super.
I mean, as you can see, imagine doing that at scale with like a 8001 and 8002 tip on actual sprayers, right? You can blast through. That's why I say like a 2,000 square foot crawl space is a half a day.
And you're doing like a misting on that versus like a fan spray?
No, we are doing a fan spray because fan means control, right? So when we teach technicians using it, we'll say, okay, start at the wall, right? You're going to have when we say an 8002 tip, it's going to be an 80-degree tip at 0.2 of a gallon output. We're going to do one pass on that, based upon our severity indexing, right? We go into this with knowledge, and then 1 to 2 minutes behind that, technician number 2 is doing the neutralization. Typically, we recommend if it's 2,000 square feet, take half of that area, neutralize it all first, then come back as a team, pass the wand back and forth to just vacuum everything off the surface, and you're done with that area, moving on to the second space. Yep. So it's just coordinated. Yep.
I like it.
Yeah, it's man, it's definitely whatever you guys changed in the formula. It definitely happens a lot quicker.
Yeah.
It's the same results like that, like 24 to 48 hours later.
Right.
The brightening of the wood like that is significantly faster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And it gets, like I keep coming back to it, it gets all the soil load out. I mean, it just floats it all to the surface. And that's why it's not a time-consuming method. People will say, well, you've got 3 steps. Yeah, but if those 3 steps are just happening back to back like that, you're not adding time, you're just adding quality.
if you leave that, if you treat that with prep and par, and what's your time between stepping away and wiping or vacuuming?
I keep everything on like a 111 or 222 minute basis, right? If I were doing this initially, like I didn't let that dwell for any longer than a minute in either case. So my feedback to the team when I give them an assessment guide would be, apply prep, allow it to dwell for 1 minute. Technician number 2, immediately neutralize with OxyPar. Do, whatever, if I go in, this is, 1,000 square foot crawl space, I would say, do 25% of that to begin with, work together to, vacuum extract everything, move on to your next severity index zone.
So if you had 3 guys on there,
You could have 2 because, 3 would be optimal. But if you had 2 guys and they just shared that prep par responsibility to begin with and they doubled back together, like man number 1's going to finish before man number 2. So if he doubles back and starts vacuuming and then they just pass it back and forth as they go and then move into the second stage, it's not that much slower with 2 than 3.
Now, I know it all depends with the severity index.
Yep.
But what is the gallon to square footage ratio?
What I say is plan on about 200 to 250 square feet a gallon with prep and about double that with par. Because par is your neutralizer, right? It's never going to be the big consumption product. OxyPrep is doing the work of penetrating the soil load, mitigating the staining, and acting as the reactant to OxyPar, which is your neutralizer, right? So it's doing 3 jobs for the 1 job that OxyPar is doing. That's why when we dial somebody in on this, we start them with an 8002 tip on prep, 8001 on par, so they're automatically using half as much product there. Yep. Does it make some sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But it's a super simple process.